I'm Madison Baker, 48, and I never thought my own son would betray me like this. 3 weeks ago, I watched in frozen shock as Tyler handed my credit card to his girlfriend Amber. "Sweetheart, use Mom's card. She's got about $130,000 on it." The casual way he revealed my financial information made my stomach drop. I'd worked 20 years building that emergency fund, planning for retirement and medical emergencies. They thought I was asleep upstairs, but I'd come down for tea. That moment changed everything, not just because of the money, but because of what happened next. Before I dive deeper into this painful chapter of my life, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. This journey has taught me so much about family, trust, and setting boundaries that I never expected to learn. If you've ever experienced betrayal from someone you love unconditionally, please hit the like button so I know I'm not alone in this. Subscribe if you want to follow my ongoing journey of healing and the unexpected silver linings I've found. Now, let me take you back to how it all began. I raised Tyler alone since he was 5 years old. His father, Mark, died suddenly from an aneurysm, leaving us with modest life insurance and a mountain of grief. As a financial advisor, I knew exactly how precarious our situation was. A single mom with a kindergartner and a mortgage in Connecticut. The statistics weren't in our favor. Every decision I made after Mark died was calculated. I packed lunches instead of giving Tyler lunch money. I drove my Honda for 15 years. Vacations meant visiting my sister in Rhode Island, not Disney World. Tyler never had the latest gaming system or trendy clothes, but he never went without anything he needed. I put 20% of every paycheck into savings, following the same advice I gave my clients. "Pay yourself first," I'd tell Tyler as he watched me organize our budget every month at the kitchen table. Compound interest is magical if you start early enough. Tyler seemed to absorb these lessons. In high school, he worked at the local grocery store, saving for college and maintaining a 3.8 gigapascals. He was responsible, kind, and seemingly immune to peer pressure. When he got into state university with a partial scholarship, I cried with pride. We'd done it. He was on his way to a better future than I dared hope for. During his freshman year, Tyler called me regularly, asking for budget advice and sharing his frugal college hacks. He found the cheapest meal plan, bought used textbooks, and even started a small side business doing computer repairs for other students. I remember thinking, Mark would be so proud of the man he's becoming. Everything changed during his sophomore year when he met Amber in a marketing class. At first, Tyler described her as brilliant and ambitious. The first time he brought her home during spring break, she seemed sweet, complimenting our modest home, asking thoughtful questions about my financial advising career, and bringing a handmade gift basket of local treats. "She's from a well-off family," Tyler explained, "but she's not stuck up about it at all." Looking back, I should have noticed how her eyes lingered on the few nice things I owned. My grandmother's silver tea set, the original painting I'd splurged on for my 40th birthday. But I was just happy Tyler had found someone who seemed to make him happy. Their relationship progressed quickly. By junior year, they were inseparable. Tyler's calls became less frequent, and when we did talk, he spoke more about weekend trips and restaurants than classes or future plans. Still, I brushed aside concerns. He was young, in love. Wasn't that normal? After graduation, both Tyler and Amber struggled to find jobs in their field. Marketing degrees in a saturated market meant competing against hundreds of applicants for entry-level positions. When Tyler asked if they could move in just for a few months until they found steady employment, I hesitated but agreed. "It's only temporary, Mom," Tyler assured me. "We're applying everywhere. We'll be out of your hair before you know it." 3 months stretched to 6. They found part-time work. Tyler at a local marketing firm as an intern, Amber at a high-end boutique, but neither position paid enough for an apartment in our expensive area. I tried to be understanding, especially after my minor heart scare 7 months ago. Finding myself in the ER with chest pains at 48 had been terrifying. Though it turned out to be stress-related and not a full heart attack, the incident forced me to confront my mortality. The doctor warned me about my elevated blood pressure and suggested reducing stress. Having Tyler home during my recovery seemed like a blessing initially. My friend Janet, a divorce attorney with a cynical streak, warned me during our weekly coffee dates. "You're enabling them, Maddie," she said. They need to struggle a little to build their own life. That's how we all did it. I defended them. The job market is different now. Student loans are crushing. Housing prices are insane. Just make sure you're not being taken advantage of, Janet replied, giving me that look that had intimidated countless opposing counsels. Love can make us blind, especially maternal love. I dismissed her concerns as typical Janet pessimism. But as spring turned to summer and then fall, the tension in our home grew. Packages arrived regularly for Amber. Designer shoes, expensive skincare, things I'd never dream of buying on my salary. Tyler's formerly tidy room became cluttered with new electronics and clothes still sporting price tags. When I gently questioned the spending, Tyler would say, "We're just trying to look professional for job interviews," or "These were on sale," or my least favorite, Amber's parents sent her some money. The night before Thanksgiving, I noticed my credit card wasn't in its usual spot in my wallet. I found it the next morning, slightly out of place in my purse. There were no unusual charges, so I convinced myself I was being paranoid. I wish I'd trusted my instincts sooner. From the beginning, Amber cultivated an image that was hard to reconcile with reality. Her Instagram portrayed a jet-setting lifestyle: champagne brunches, designer outfits, weekend getaways, while she claimed to be struggling financially. I once overheard her on the phone telling a friend about a strategy to monetize Tyler's family connections. When I asked Tyler about it later, he laughed it off. "That's just marketing speak, Mom. She's networking." Tyler changed subtly at first, then dramatically after they moved in. My son, who once tracked every dollar in a meticulous spreadsheet, now shrugged off $200 dinners as necessary for networking. The boy who wore the same winter coat for 6 years suddenly needed designer labels to make the right impression. "Image is everything in marketing," became his mantra, repeating Amber's words. Their dynamic troubled me. Amber would make a suggestion, a weekend trip, an expensive purchase, and if Tyler hesitated, she'd withdraw emotionally. He'd spend days trying to regain her approval, usually by giving in to whatever she wanted. I recognized the pattern from my years counseling clients through financial hardships caused by relationship imbalances. When I found a receipt for an $800 watch in the trash, I confronted Tyler privately. "This doesn't align with the values I raised you with," I said carefully. "You're making entry-level income. This is beyond your means." "You don't understand how things work now, Mom," he replied with a condescension that stung. "We're investing in our personal brand. Amber says people won't respect us professionally if we look cheap." The word landed like a slap. Was that how he now viewed our life together? Cheap? Being financially responsible isn't being cheap, I countered. It's being smart. "Well, maybe I'm tired of being smart and having nothing to show for it," he snapped. "Dad's been gone 20 years, and you're still living like we're one emergency away from homelessness." I didn't respond. Couldn't. The gulf between us seemed unbridgeable in that moment. Amber became increasingly territorial in my home. She rearranged furniture without asking, criticized my cooking within earshot, and once I caught her trying on my grandmother's jewelry, pieces I'd explicitly told her were family heirlooms, not for casual use. "I was just seeing how they look," she said with a practiced innocence. "They're wasted sitting in a box." The tension between us grew, though she maintained a saccharine sweetness whenever Tyler was present. When he wasn't, her mask occasionally slipped. Once, after I asked them to contribute to groceries, I overheard her in the guest room. "Your mom is so stingy," she hissed. "She's sitting on all that money while making us feel like burdens." I wanted to burst in and ask what all that money she thought I had. My retirement was solid, but not extravagant. I had emergency savings and investments, yes, but after putting Tyler through college with minimal loans, I wasn't exactly wealthy. The package deliveries increased. Amber began wearing clothes with tags I recognized from luxury stores. When I expressed concern about their spending to Tyler, he became defensive. "We're adults, Mom. We manage our own finances." But they weren't managing. Credit card statements Tyler accidentally left open on his laptop showed balances in the thousands. Once, I glimpsed an overdraft notice on his phone. Still, the spending continued. They began having whispered conversations that stopped abruptly when I entered rooms. Tyler changed all his passwords and became protective of his phone. Amber started asking peculiar questions about my investment strategy, insurance policies, and retirement accounts. Information no daughter-in-law would typically need. "I'm just trying to learn from you," she'd say. "You're so good with money." My purse, which I'd always left on the kitchen counter, began showing signs of being searched. Items slightly moved, zippers not fully closed. Twice I found my bank statements on my desk when I was certain I'd filed them away. The most troubling incident came when I received a notification about a login attempt to my investment account from an unrecognized device. When I mentioned it casually at dinner, both Tyler and Amber became intensely interested in whether it was handled and if I'd changed my passwords. "Cybersecurity is so important, Madison," Amber said with unusual formality. "You should really use a password manager. I could set one up for you." I declined, citing my bank's security protocols as sufficient. That night, I called Janet. "I think something's happening with Tyler and Amber," I admitted. "I feel like I'm being studied, like they're gathering financial information." "Change your passwords," Janet said immediately. "Check your credit report. Don't dismiss your instincts." I followed her advice but told myself I was overreacting. This was my son, after all. The boy who'd once returned a $20 bill to a cashier who'd given him too much change. The teenager who worked extra shifts to buy me a birthday present. How could I have known that boy was gone? The night everything changed, I'd been struggling with insomnia, a common problem since my heart scare. After tossing and turning until 1:30 a.m., I decided to make chamomile tea, hoping it might help me sleep. Our house has an old Victorian layout, with a back staircase that leads directly to the kitchen. As I descended, stepping carefully to avoid the creaky third step, I heard voices. Tyler and Amber were still awake, unusual since they typically went to bed early on weeknights. I paused on the landing, not intending to eavesdrop but caught by the urgent tone of their conversation. "We've got to figure something out," Tyler was saying. "The interest is killing us, and the minimum payments aren't even touching the principal." "Your mom would never have to know," Amber replied. "We could pay it back before she checks that account. She barely touches it." My blood ran cold. What account were they referring to? "I don't know," Tyler sounded hesitant. "Taking a few hundred for emergencies is one thing, but this is different. A few hundred? They'd taken money from me before?" "Babe, we've talked about this." Amber's voice dropped to a persuasive purr. "It's not like we're stealing. You're her son. That money will be yours someday anyway. We're just accessing it early. She'd see a withdrawal that large. Not if we use her credit card for the purchase instead of a direct transfer. The statement won't come for another month, and we'll have paid it back by then." I gripped the banister, my heart hammering dangerously in my chest. This couldn't be happening. "She checks her accounts online, almost daily," Tyler objected. "Then we do it right before the weekend trip she's taking with Janet. You said she never brings her laptop when they go to the spa. That gives us 3 days before she'd notice." They were discussing my upcoming birthday weekend, a trip Janet had insisted on to help me relax after my health scare. I'd mentioned it casually over dinner last week, including the detail about unplugging from technology. "What about the fraud alert?" Tyler asked. "A purchase that large might trigger it. We've been making small purchases on her card for months," Amber replied. "The algorithm probably recognizes our spending patterns by now." Small purchases? For months? The room seemed to spin around me. "I still don't like it. What if we get caught? What's she going to do? Press charges against her precious only son?" Amber's laugh was cold. She'd be too embarrassed to tell anyone. "Worst case, we say we thought it was an early inheritance or something." There was a long silence before I heard Tyler's chair scrape against the floor. I shrank back into the shadows. "Let me think about it," he said. "We don't have time to think." Amber's voice had an edge I'd never heard before. "The Rothwell deal is once in a lifetime. If we don't get in now, we miss our chance. What deal is worth risking my relationship with my mom? The kind that turns 50,000 into $500,000 within 3 years. The kind that gets us out of this town and into the life we deserve." My mind raced. $50,000? What kind of investment were they considering that promised such returns? It sounded like a scam. "If it's such a sure thing, why don't your parents invest?" Tyler challenged. "They're already in. How do you think they afforded the house in Vale? This is our chance, Tyler. Don't you want to give me the life I deserve? Of course I do. But what? You'd rather we keep living with your mom until we're 30? Working jobs we hate? Watching our friends succeed while we struggle? Another long silence followed. How would we even do it? Tyler finally asked, his voice defeated. We use her card for the initial investment. The money gets transferred to the Rothwell account. In 3 months, we take out our original investment plus the first dividend. We replace what we took from your mom. She never knows, and we're on our way to financial freedom. What if the investment fails? It won't. But even if something unexpected happened, we'd figure it out. Maybe sell some of those jewelry pieces your mom never wears, or that painting in her study. I looked it up. It's worth at least 15 grand. They were discussing selling my possessions, the few treasures I'd allowed myself over years of frugal living. I felt physically ill. I need to sleep on it, Tyler said. No, you need to decide now. The opportunity closes tomorrow at midnight. The urgency in Amber's voice set off alarm bells. Legitimate investments don't operate on artificial deadlines. Fine, Tyler sighed. We'll do it. But I swear, Amber, we pay back every cent. Of course, baby. Your mom will never know. And within a year, we'll be able to buy her a house twice this size if you want. I heard the sound of a kiss, then rustling. I'll get the card from her purse, Tyler said. Panic surged through me. I turned and crept back upstairs as quietly as possible, my tea forgotten. I closed my bedroom door silently and slid into bed, mind racing. I should confront them immediately. I should kick them out. I should call the police. But shame and disbelief paralyzed me. How had my son become this person? Where had I failed him? And what was this Rothwell investment that sounded suspiciously like a Ponzi scheme? I lay awake all night, listening for sounds, wondering if Tyler would come into my room to search for my purse. He didn't. Perhaps he'd wait until morning when I was in the shower. Dawn broke, and I hadn't slept a minute. I heard Tyler and Amber stirring around 7:30. Taking a deep breath, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront them yet. I needed to understand the full extent of what was happening first. I went downstairs, feigning normalcy despite feeling like my world was collapsing. My purse sat on the kitchen counter where I'd left it. Had they already taken the card? I couldn't check without raising suspicion. Morning, Mom, Tyler said, not quite meeting my eyes. Sleep well? Like a log, I lied, pouring coffee with a hand that threatened to tremble. What are you two up to today? Just errands, Amber said brightly. We might do some shopping for job interviews. Job interviews they hadn't mentioned before. Right. I left for work, calling my bank from the car to check recent transactions. Nothing unusual yet. I considered canceling the card immediately but hesitated. If I did that, I'd never know the full extent of their plans. I made another call instead, to Janet. I spent the workday in a fog, going through the motions with clients while my mind raced. Janet met me for lunch at a cafe far from my office. You need to secure all your financial accounts immediately, she said after I recounted what I'd overheard. This isn't just a moral failing, Madison. What they're planning is criminal. He's my son, I said weakly. And if you don't stop this now, he could end up with a criminal record that follows him forever. Is that what you want for him? She was right, of course. By enabling this behavior, I wasn't protecting Tyler. I was ensuring worse consequences down the line. I checked my accounts again after lunch. A pending authorization had appeared. $49,850 to Rothwell Investment Partners, LLC. My hands shook as I took screenshots. Don't cancel it yet, Janet advised when I called her. Let it post. Document everything. Then we confront them with evidence they can't deny. I agreed, though it felt like watching a car crash in slow motion. That evening, I came home early, pretending nothing was amiss. Tyler and Amber were in the kitchen, laughing about something on Amber's phone. They fell suspiciously silent when I entered. How was your day? I asked, setting my purse down deliberately on the counter. Fine, Tyler answered quickly. Just, applications and stuff. And shopping, Amber added with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We found some great professional outfits on sale. I nodded, noticing how Tyler's hand moved slightly, to cover a printout on the table. Something with the Rothwell logo visible at the top. Anything interesting come in the mail? I asked casually. They exchanged a glance so brief I might have missed it if I hadn't been watching for it. Just bills and junk, Tyler replied. I went upstairs, closed my bedroom door, and called Janet again. The transaction posted, I told her. It's official now. I'll be there in 30 minutes, she said. Don't confront them alone. Those 30 minutes were the longest of my life. I sat on my bed, staring at family photos, Tyler's graduation, our camping trips, him blowing out candles on his 10th birthday cake. Had I created this entitlement through single-parent guilt? Had I not taught him clear enough values? The doorbell rang at exactly 6:30 p.m. I heard Tyler answer it, then Janet's voice, followed by confused murmuring. I came downstairs to find Tyler and Amber standing awkwardly in the living room with Janet. What's going on? Tyler asked, his face a mask of false confusion. Janet said you wanted to talk to us about something important. I took a deep breath and placed my laptop on the coffee table, turning the screen to face them. I want to talk about this, I said, pointing to the Rothwell transaction displayed on my banking app. The color drained from Tyler's face. Amber immediately adopted a puzzled expression. What's that? She asked innocently. It's a $49,850 charge to my credit card made at 10:37 this morning, I replied evenly. For something called Rothwell Investment Partners. Mom, I can explain, Tyler began. Please do, I interrupted, surprised by how steady my voice remained despite my hammering heart. Explain how my credit card was used without my permission for a transaction equal to almost half my emergency fund. I was going to tell you, he stammered. It's an investment opportunity. The returns are guaranteed. I was going to surprise you with the profits. That's not true, I said quietly. I heard you and Amber discussing it last night. I heard everything, Tyler. His eyes widened in shock, then narrowed defensively. You were spying on us? I was getting tea in my own kitchen when I overheard you planning to steal from me. It's not stealing, he protested. I'm your son, which makes this betrayal even worse, I said, my voice finally breaking. You were discussing selling my possessions if your scheme failed. Amber stepped forward, tears suddenly streaming down her face. Madison, it wasn't my idea. Tyler convinced me it would be okay. He said you'd never even notice the money was gone. I stared at her in disbelief. That's not what I heard last night. She's lying, Amber insisted, turning to Tyler. Tell her you pressured me into this. Tyler looked trapped between us, his mouth opening and closing without words. Stop, Janet interjected. I'm an attorney, and I need to make something very clear. What's happened here is credit card fraud. It's a felony. Madison has evidence not just of the transaction, but of the premeditated plan to make it. You wouldn't press charges against your own son, Tyler said, echoing Amber's words from the night before. The familiarity of the phrase hit me like a physical blow. This isn't the first time, is it? I asked quietly. Tyler's eyes dropped to the floor. The truth, Tyler. Now, we've used your card for smaller things, he admitted reluctantly. Just a few hundred here and there. Show me your closet, I demanded suddenly. What? He looked confused. Your closet. Now, reluctantly, he led us upstairs to the guest room. I opened the closet door to find what I'd suspected. Designer clothes, new electronics, shoes still in boxes, thousands of dollars of items that had appeared over recent months. How much have you already taken? I asked. I don't know exactly, he mumbled. Maybe 3,000? We were going to pay it back. With what money? I challenged. You barely make enough to cover your car payment. With the investment returns, Amber interjected. The Rothwell plan is guaranteed. 15% returns minimum, Janet snorted. There's no such thing as guaranteed returns of that magnitude. You're being scammed. No, we're not, Amber insisted. My parents invested with them. They've already seen returns. We'll discuss the legitimacy of this investment later, I said. Right now, we need to address the theft. It's not theft, Tyler repeated stubbornly. Family money is different. No, it's not, I said firmly. I've worked for every dollar in those accounts. Money you would have inherited someday, yes. After I'm gone and if I hadn't needed it for medical care or other necessities in my old age. Not now, not like this. and certainly not for some get-rich-quick scheme. So what are you going to do? Tyler challenged, a flash of the little boy who'd test boundaries evident in his defiant stance. Press charges? Ruin my life over a misunderstanding? This wasn't a misunderstanding, I said quietly. This was calculated. You discussed waiting until I was away for the weekend so I wouldn't notice immediately. You considered which of my possessions you could sell if your plan failed. That was Amber's idea. Tyler suddenly turned on his girlfriend. She's the one who's been pushing this. Amber's tears dried instantly, replaced by cold fury. Are you serious right now? You're the one who showed me your mom's financial statements. You're the one who said she'd never notice if we borrowed from her emergency fund. You're the one who took her card the first time. They turned on each other like wolves, each revealing more damning information in their attempts to shift blame. Enough! I finally shouted, silencing them both. Here's what happens now. First, you will cancel this transaction immediately if it's not too late. If it is, you'll contact this company first thing tomorrow and withdraw the investment. But we'll lose the opportunity, Amber began. Second, I continued as if she hadn't spoken. You have 24 hours to pack your things and find somewhere else to live. Tyler's face crumpled. Mom, please. Third, you will repay every cent you've taken from me. Janet will draw up a formal repayment agreement that you will both sign. And if we refuse? Amber challenged. Janet stepped forward. Then Madison files a police report for credit card fraud, identity theft, and conversion of property. The documented losses exceed the felony threshold. You'd both be looking at potential jail time, not to mention the end of any serious career prospects. The room fell silent. I trusted you, I said to Tyler, my voice breaking again. Not just with my home or my possessions, but with my heart. Do you understand what you've done here? It's not about the money. It's about the betrayal. For the first time, I saw genuine remorse flash across his face. I'm sorry, he whispered. Sorry doesn't undo this, I replied. Actions have consequences. This is the most important lesson I've ever had to teach you, and I've failed until now. What about the money? Amber asked, her practical nature reasserting itself. How are we supposed to repay thousands when we can barely afford rent? You'll figure it out, I said, echoing her callous words about my possessions. Sell some of those designer clothes. Get second jobs. Live within your means like the rest of us. I want to watch you cancel this transaction, Janet interjected. Right now. Tyler reluctantly pulled out his phone and opened an app I didn't recognize. After several tense minutes, he looked up. It's done, he said. The cancellation is processing. They'll refund the money within 3 to 5 business days, minus a $500 cancellation fee. I closed my eyes briefly. $500 gone, just like that. Pack your essentials tonight, I said, suddenly exhausted. You can come back for the rest when I'm at work tomorrow. I want your keys left on the kitchen counter. As I turned to leave, Tyler caught my arm. Mom, please, can't we talk about this? I made a terrible mistake, but I'm still your son. I looked into his eyes, Mark's eyes, and felt a pain so profound I could barely breathe. Yes, you are, I said softly. And because you're my son, I'm doing what I should have done months ago. I'm holding you accountable instead of enabling behavior that will destroy your life. Someday, you might thank me for that. I went to my room and closed the door, finally allowing the tears to come. I've been told that in moments of profound shock, we find out who we truly are. That night, I discovered I was stronger than I ever believed possible, but at a cost I never imagined paying. You know what's almost as hard as confronting someone you love? Sharing these painful moments with others. If you're finding value in my story, please hit the like button. It helps me know I'm not just sending these words into a void. And if you've faced family betrayal too, subscribing means we can support each other through the journey ahead. Now, let me tell you what happened after that terrible night. The house felt impossibly quiet after Tyler and Amber left the next morning. I took a personal day from work, sitting numb at my kitchen table until Janet arrived with coffee and legal paperwork. We need to check your credit report, she said gently. If they had access to your card, they might have had access to other information. She was right. My credit report revealed 2 credit card applications in my name from the previous month. One approved, one pending. I hadn't applied for either. Identity theft, Janet confirmed grimly. We need to report this. The next hours passed in a blur of phone calls, to credit bureaus, to my bank, to the fraud department, to the police. With each call, the extent of the betrayal deepened. The pending Rothwell transaction was eventually reversed, but as Tyler had said, they kept a $500 administrative fee. Later investigation would reveal that Rothwell Investment Partners was indeed a sophisticated Ponzi scheme that had already claimed dozens of victims across 3 states. Consider that $500 a cheap lesson, Janet said when I bemoaned the loss. It could have been $50,000. My bank's fraud investigation uncovered multiple unauthorized transactions over the previous 6 months, small enough to have blended in with my regular spending. Restaurant charges, online shopping, subscription services. The total approached $4,300. We'll dispute everything we can, the fraud specialist assured me. But transactions older than 60 days are harder to recover. I spent an entire weekend changing passwords, setting up new accounts, and placing fraud alerts on my credit. The violation felt physical, as if someone had broken into my home and tried on my clothes, read my private journals, touched everything I owned. In a way, that's exactly what had happened. A week after the confrontation, while Tyler and Amber were supposedly staying with friends, I discovered a notebook hidden in the back of the guest room closet. Inside, in Amber's meticulous handwriting, were details about my finances, account numbers, passwords, answers to security questions, even notes about my daily habits. Monday, checks mail after work. Thursday, online banking day. Always uses same passwords with slight variations. Most disturbing were the plans for accessing additional funds. Refinance house? Could pull $175 kelvins equity? Loan against retirement? 401 kelvins allows hardship withdrawal. Life insurance policy. Cash surrender value? They'd been systematically planning to drain every asset I had. I brought the notebook to the police, adding it to the growing file of evidence. The detective assigned to my case treated me with kindness, but couldn't hide his shock at the calculated nature of the theft. Usually in family fraud cases, it's impulsive, he explained. This level of planning is unusual. An examination of Tyler's forgotten tablet, left charging in the guest room, revealed even more. Messages between him and Amber discussed my finances in clinical detail. Screenshots of my bank statements, photos of my financial documents, a drafted letter, never sent, requesting a loan against my home, with my signature clearly forged at the bottom. The most damning evidence came from their own text messages. Amber, just get the card again tonight. She never checks the online statement until Wednesday. Tyler, okay, but we need to keep it under 1 Kelvin this time. Amber, that won't be enough for the down payment. Tyler, we'll find another way. Maybe that diamond necklace in her jewelry box? She never wears it. The necklace they referenced was my mother's, my only inheritance when she died. I'd saved it for Tyler to give to his future wife someday. The thought of them pawning it made me physically ill. As the investigation continued, the total amount taken crept upward. Beyond the credit card charges, they had accessed my checking account several times, making transfers disguised as bill payments that actually went to Tyler's account. They'd opened store credit cards in my name. They'd even tried to take out a personal loan using my information. The grand total approached $37,000. I can't believe I didn't notice. I told Janet one evening as we sorted through financial statements. They were careful, she replied. Small amounts. Regular patterns. That's why it worked. I keep thinking about the red flags I ignored, I said. The packages, the sudden lifestyle change, the questions about my accounts. Don't blame yourself, Janet insisted. They exploited your trust. That's on them, not you. 3 weeks after they left, I received a call from a detective in a neighboring town. They were investigating a similar case, a woman whose son and his girlfriend had systematically defrauded her of nearly $60,000. The girlfriend's name is Amber Lewis, the detective said. Does that sound familiar? It did. Before Tyler, Amber had apparently practiced this scheme with another boyfriend and his mother. The pattern was nearly identical, moving in temporarily, gaining trust, escalating from small thefts to larger fraud attempts. I felt physically sick learning we weren't her first victims, but also vindicated. This wasn't just my son making a terrible mistake. They had been working a calculated con from the beginning. When I shared this information with Tyler in a carefully worded email, his response was immediate and desperate. "Mom, I swear I didn't know about her past. She told me her ex was abusive and she had to leave quickly. I believed her. Please don't lump me in with her previous schemes. What we did was wrong, but I never intended for it to go so far." I wanted to believe him, but the evidence suggested otherwise. His active participation was documented in texts, notes, and financial records. If he had been manipulated initially, he had become a willing participant. The district attorney explained my options clearly. I could press charges against both of them, against just Amber or against neither. Family fraud cases were among the most underreported crimes because victims often couldn't bear to see loved ones prosecuted. "Take some time to decide," she advised. "This isn't a decision to make quickly." In the meantime, I had to rebuild my financial security. I consolidated accounts, set up advanced security measures, and began the painstaking process of disputing fraudulent charges. My excellent credit score dropped nearly 100 points from the identity theft, affecting everything from insurance rates to loan applications. The emotional toll was even greater than the financial one. I couldn't sleep in my own home without checking the locks multiple times. I jumped when the phone rang. I scrutinized every bank statement with paranoid attention. My health suffered too. My blood pressure, which had been improving, spiked dangerously high. My doctor increased my medication and suggested counseling for acute stress. "Your body is responding, as if you're in physical danger," she explained. "Because in an evolutionary sense, you were. Your child, your protector in old age, betrayed your trust. Your brain processes that as a survival threat." The explanation made sense but provided little comfort. Meanwhile, Tyler made sporadic attempts at contact, alternating between remorse, excuses, and anger that I'd overreacted. Amber disappeared completely, reportedly moving back to her parents' home in another state. Then came the letter that changed everything. It arrived 6 weeks after the confrontation, addressed in unfamiliar handwriting. "Dear Miss Baker, you don't know me, but my name is Eleanor Reynolds. My son David dated Amber Lewis for 8 months last year. During that time, they stole approximately $62,000 from me through methods similar to what you experienced. I learned from Detective Wilson that you're another victim. I'm writing because I wish someone had warned me. Amber has done this at least 3 times that we know of. She targets single mothers with responsible sons who have good relationships with their mothers. She isolates the sons, convinces them their mothers are financially abusive by being stingy, and slowly turns them against their families. If you're considering prosecution, I urge you to proceed." I didn't, believing David's promises to change. He is now in jail anyway for credit card fraud committed against his grandmother. These patterns don't stop without consequences. With sympathy, Eleanor Reynolds. The letter confirmed what I'd suspected, but didn't want to face. This wasn't an isolated incident or momentary lapse in judgment. It was a pattern, a scheme, and without intervention, it would continue. I called the district attorney the next morning. People talk about grief as if it follows a predictable path. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. What they don't tell you is how those stages tangle together when you're grieving someone who's still alive. In the weeks after filing charges against Tyler and Amber, I cycled through emotions with dizzying speed. One moment I'd be resolute, certain I'd made the right decision. The next, I'd be sobbing over baby photos, wondering how we'd arrived at this unthinkable place. My therapist, Dr. Levine, specialized in trauma recovery. During our first session, she asked a question that caught me off guard. "Who are you grieving more? Tyler or yourself?" "Tyler, of course," I answered automatically. "Are you sure?" She pressed gently. "Many parents in your situation mourn the loss of their own identity as much as the relationship with their child. The person you thought you were, a successful mother who raised a good man, that identity has been challenged." Her words struck a painful chord. I had built my entire adult life around being Tyler's mom. Through financial hardships, dating disappointments, career setbacks, that role had been my anchor. Who was I, if not the woman who had successfully raised a kind, ethical son? The shame felt crushing at times. I told colleagues I had a plumbing emergency when I needed to miss work for court appearances. I stopped attending my weekly book club, unable to face the inevitable questions about Tyler. I ducked down grocery aisles to avoid neighbors. Shame thrives in secrecy, Dr. Levine cautioned. The more you hide, the stronger it grows. Following her advice, I finally confided in my book club friends during a tearful evening at Janet's house. Their responses overwhelmed me, not with judgment, but with similar stories. My brothers stole our mother's identity and maxed out 3 credit cards. My cousin emptied our grandmother's bank account to feed his gambling addiction. My daughter forged checks from my checkbook all through her active addiction. I wasn't alone. The realization didn't erase the pain, but it lessened the isolation. Dr. Levine suggested I join a support group specifically for family financial abuse. The first meeting, in a church basement across town, terrified me. What would these strangers think? Would they blame me for failing as a mother? Instead, I found understanding beyond anything I could have imagined. Men and women of all ages shared stories painfully similar to mine. Adult children, siblings, even parents who had exploited family trust for financial gain. Some had pressed charges, others hadn't. All carried the same wounded question. How do you continue loving someone who has betrayed you so fundamentally? There were no simple answers, but there was solidarity. And slowly, that made a difference. My physical health reflected the emotional turmoil. I developed insomnia that left me exhausted during the day. Stress-induced acid reflux made eating painful. My previously well-managed blood pressure became a constant concern. Your body keeps the score, my doctor explained, recommending meditation and gentle exercise alongside my medication. I began walking each morning before work, forcing myself out of bed even when fatigue pulled me under. Those solitary walks became a lifeline. Time to process my thoughts without judgment, to feel anger and grief without apology. On one such walk, about 3 months after filing charges, I encountered Mrs. Chen, my elderly neighbor, whose son had moved her into his home the previous year. "Madison," she called, waving me over. "I've been thinking of you." Janet told me a little of what happened. I braced myself for platitudes or judgment. "My Liang stole from me too," she said instead. Her voice, matter of fact, when he was 27, nearly $30,000 from my retirement. I stared at her in shock. Liang Chen was now a respected doctor who doted on his mother. "People can change," she continued, patting my hand. "Not everyone, not without real consequences. But sometimes, with the right intervention, the child you raised can find his way back." "Did you press charges?" I asked. "No, but I made him earn back every penny," she said firmly. "And I required therapy, for him alone and for us together. The road was long, but worth taking." Her words offered the first real hope I'd felt in months. Not a guarantee, but a possibility that someday, somehow, healing might be possible. The legal process ground forward with excruciating slowness. Each development brought fresh pain. Tyler hired a lawyer who suggested I was an overbearing mother seeking revenge for perceived slights. Amber, facing additional charges from her previous victims, portrayed herself as a vulnerable young woman manipulated by the men in her life. Meanwhile, I received a promotion at work, a bright spot that felt almost surreal against the backdrop of personal chaos. My colleagues celebrated with a small office party, and for a few hours, I remembered there were aspects of my identity beyond Tyler's betrayed mother. 6 months after the initial confrontation, I received a call from Tyler's lawyer. Tyler wanted to meet, not to discuss the case, but to talk. Against Janet's advice, I agreed, suggesting a public cafe near my office. I arrived early, heart pounding so hard I felt lightheaded. When Tyler walked in, the sight of him hit me physically. He looked thinner, older, his confident posture replaced by a guarded slouch. For a moment, all I wanted was to hug my child. Instead, I nodded at the seat across from me. "Thank you for meeting me," he began, his voice hoarse. "I know you have every reason to refuse." "Why did you want to see me?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "I needed to tell you something in person," he replied, meeting my eyes directly for the first time. "I'm responsible for what happened. Not Amber. Not circumstance. Me. I betrayed your trust. I stole from you. I lied to you. And I'm more sorry than I can ever express. The words I'd longed to hear still couldn't bridge the chasm between us. Why? I asked, the question that had haunted me for months. We were always close. I thought I taught you better values. He looked down at his hands. I've been asking myself that every day. My therapist thinks it started with entitlement, feeling like I deserved more than I had earned. Then rationalization, convincing myself it wasn't really stealing because you're my mother. Then addiction, to the lifestyle, to Amber's approval, to the rush of getting away with it. And now? I prompted when he fell silent. Now I'm trying to understand who I really am, he said quietly. Because I don't recognize the person who did those things, but I can't deny it was me. I nodded, understanding that journey all too well. I don't expect forgiveness, he continued. I'm not asking for the charges to be dropped. I just needed you to know that I see what I did, clearly, without excuses. As I left the cafe an hour later, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps the first step toward it. The grief remained, but alongside it grew something new. Hope, fragile but persistent. That night, I wrote in my journal for the first time since the confrontation. The words came slowly at first, then in a rush. I am more than Tyler's mother. I am more than a victim of betrayal. I am Madison Baker, financial advisor, friend, book club member, neighbor, hiker, survivor. I am broken but healing. I am grieving but growing. I am finding my way forward, one painful step at a time. The journey wasn't over, far from it. But for the first time, I believed I would survive it. The criminal justice system operates with glacial slowness, especially for white-collar crimes. 9 months passed between filing charges and the first substantive court appearance. A preliminary hearing to determine if there was sufficient evidence to proceed to trial. I sat in the courtroom, hands clenched tightly in my lap as the prosecutor presented financial records, text messages, and the notebook detailing their schemes. Tyler kept his eyes down, while Amber repeatedly turned to glare at me when she thought no one was watching. Their legal strategies diverged almost immediately. Tyler's attorney emphasized his clean prior record and positioned him as an impressionable young man influenced by his more sophisticated girlfriend. Amber's counsel painted her as a victim of manipulation by Tyler, who allegedly used his privileged position as my son to orchestrate the fraud. This is surreal, I whispered to Janet during a recess. They're both denying responsibility by blaming each other. Standard defense tactic, she replied. They're scrambling for any position that might reduce consequences. The judge found sufficient evidence to proceed against both defendants, setting a trial date 4 months away. 2 weeks later, the district attorney called with unexpected news. Amber wants to make a deal, she explained. She'll plead guilty to reduced charges and testify against Tyler in exchange for a recommendation of probation instead of jail time. The proposal stunned me. She's turning on him? After everything? This isn't unusual in co-defendant cases, the DA explained, especially when the evidence is strong. She claims Tyler was the mastermind and she was a reluctant participant. That's absolutely false, I replied, thinking of the notebook in Amber's handwriting, the text messages where she pushed for larger thefts. We know, the DA assured me, but her testimony would strengthen our case against Tyler considerably. It's your decision whether we accept the offer. The choice tormented me. Accepting meant Amber might escape serious consequences for her actions, not just against me, but potentially against other victims. Refusing meant a longer, more difficult prosecution with less certain outcomes. After consulting with Dr. Levine and Janet, I agreed to the deal with one condition. Amber must make full restitution for her share of the stolen funds. The next shock came just days before Tyler's trial was scheduled to begin. His attorney requested an urgent meeting with the prosecutor and me. Tyler wants to plead guilty, she announced. To all charges, no deals, no reduced sentences. Why? I asked. Suspicious of yet another manipulation. He says he doesn't want to put you through a trial, his lawyer explained, and he doesn't want to continue denying responsibility for his actions. The sudden change contradicted everything I'd observed in the legal proceedings thus far. Tyler had seemed determined to minimize his culpability, even as the evidence mounted against him. Is this legitimate? I asked the prosecutor when Tyler's attorney stepped out. It's unusual, she admitted, but the evidence against him is overwhelming. A guilty plea means accepting the maximum potential consequences instead of fighting for reduced charges. Tyler's change of heart became clearer at the plea hearing. Standing before the judge, he spoke without notes. "I accept full responsibility for my actions," he stated, his voice steady. "I betrayed my mother's trust in the worst possible way. I stole from her, lied to her, and violated the sanctity of our family relationship. I make no excuses, and I accept whatever punishment the court deems appropriate." The judge studied him skeptically. "Mr. Baker, are you making this plea freely and voluntarily, without pressure or promises?" "Yes, Your Honor. And you understand that by pleading guilty to these felony charges, you face potential imprisonment, fines, restitution, and a permanent criminal record?" "I do." "Very well. The court accepts your plea." Amber's hearing followed a different script entirely. She sobbed throughout, portraying herself as a naive young woman led astray by Tyler's influence. The judge seemed unimpressed, particularly when the prosecutor presented evidence of her previous fraudulent activities. "Miss Lewis," the judge said sternly, "your plea agreement may spare you imprisonment, but make no mistake, this court views your actions as calculated and predatory. The pre-sentence investigation will determine whether I accept the prosecutor's recommendation of probation." The sentencing hearings were scheduled 6 weeks later. During that time, I received letters from both Tyler and Amber. Amber's was clearly crafted with legal assistance. A formal apology filled with qualifiers like for any distress my actions may have caused and for my role in the unfortunate events. It felt as empty as her courtroom tears. Tyler's letter was different. 3 pages of unvarnished acknowledgement, without excuses or deflection. "I've been working with my therapist to understand why I betrayed you," he wrote. "The more honest I become with myself, the more I realize this wasn't about money. It was about my own inadequacies and the ease of blaming you for my failures. Taking your money gave me a false sense of power and control when I felt neither in my own life. None of this excuses what I did. I'm just trying to understand it, so I never repeat these patterns." He continued, "I know words mean nothing after so many lies. I don't ask for forgiveness. I only want you to know that whatever sentence I receive, I've already committed to using that time to become someone worthy of the values you tried to instill in me." The letter moved me deeply, but experience had taught me caution. Were these genuine insights or skilled manipulation? Only time would tell. At Amber's sentencing, the judge departed from the prosecutor's recommendation of probation only. While he didn't impose jail time, he ordered 5 years of supervised probation, full restitution of $18,500, her calculated share of the theft, 500 hours of community service at a senior center, mandatory financial counseling, prohibition from accessing anyone else's financial information. "Miss Lewis," the judge concluded, "this court believes you present a continuing danger to vulnerable individuals. Any violation of these terms will result in immediate incarceration." Tyler's sentencing the following week drew more attention, with several local reporters present. The story of a son systematically defrauding his widowed mother had captured public interest. I had been asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement. After much reflection, I decided to speak. Standing before the court, I focused on Tyler rather than the judge. "The financial loss I experienced pales in comparison to the destruction of trust," I began, my voice surprisingly steady. "Money can be replaced. The absolute faith I had in my son cannot." I described the effects of his betrayal, the health issues, the psychological trauma, the loss of security in my own home. "However," I continued, "I do not believe incarceration alone will address the underlying issues that led to these actions. I ask the court to incorporate rehabilitation, therapy, and restoration into whatever sentence is imposed." Tyler maintained eye contact throughout, tears streaming unchecked down his face. The judge considered me thoughtfully before addressing Tyler. "Mr. Baker, your crimes are particularly egregious because they violated not just law, but the fundamental trust between parent and child. You exploited your mother's love and faith in you for financial gain." He continued, "However, the court notes your acceptance of responsibility, lack of prior criminal history, and your mother's recommendation for rehabilitative measures." The sentence came as a shock to everyone in the courtroom. 6 months in county jail, followed by 1 year in a residential treatment facility specializing in financial offenders, 5 years of supervised probation, full restitution of $18,500, his share of the theft, 1,000 hours of community service, specifically with elder financial abuse prevention, mandatory individual and family therapy. This court believes, the judge concluded, that true justice includes the opportunity for redemption. Mr. Baker, whether you seize that opportunity is entirely up to you. As Tyler was led away, he turned back once, mouthing 2 words. Thank you. I wasn't sure whether he was thanking me for my statement or for the difficult lesson in accountability that might ultimately save him, perhaps both. Outside the courthouse, a reporter approached with predictable questions about how it felt to see my son sentenced to jail. Janet stepped between us protectively, but I decided to answer. Today isn't about feelings, I said simply. It's about consequences and accountability. Necessary steps toward whatever comes next. The story ran in the local paper the next day with the headline, Mother's Tough Love. Woman presses charges against son who stole $37,000. The online comments divided sharply between those who praised my courage and those who condemned me for not handling family matters privately. Both perspectives missed the point entirely. This wasn't about punishment or public shaming. It was about breaking a destructive cycle before it consumed Tyler's entire life, and mine. 1 month into Tyler's sentence, I received a call from Detective Wilson. Miss Baker, we've identified another victim of Miss Lewis from before your son's involvement. A Mrs. Reynolds mentioned you might have received a letter from her mother. Eleanor Reynolds, I confirmed. Her son David dated Amber before Tyler. Exactly. With your testimony and evidence, plus Mrs. Reynolds, we're building a stronger case against Miss Lewis for pattern financial fraud. The DA believes we can enhance the charges significantly. I agreed to provide whatever assistance they needed. Accountability wasn't just for Tyler. Amber needed to face the full consequences of her actions as well. As I hung up, I realized something had shifted within me. For the first time since discovering the betrayal, I felt a sense of purpose beyond survival. If sharing my experience could prevent others from suffering similar exploitation, perhaps some meaning could emerge from this painful chapter. The legal process had been exhausting, expensive, and emotionally draining. But it had also provided structure and resolution when my personal world seemed to be collapsing. The court's recognition of the harm done validated my experience in ways that private forgiveness never could have. Justice, I was learning, wasn't just about punishment. It was about truth, accountability, and the opportunity for genuine change. Whether Tyler would seize that opportunity remained to be seen. But for the first time, I dared to hope he might. 8 months after the sentencing, a letter arrived from Restoration House, the residential treatment facility where Tyler had been transferred after completing his jail time. Dear Miss Baker, it began formally. I'm Connor Wright, Tyler's primary counselor at Restoration House. Tyler has been working intensively on understanding the patterns that led to his criminal behavior. After significant progress, he's expressed interest in beginning family reconciliation work, if you're willing. This would involve structured therapeutic meetings with professional support. Please contact me if you'd like to discuss this possibility. My hands trembled as I set the letter down. Was I ready to face Tyler again? To risk more pain? I called Dr. Levine immediately. This is a significant development, she acknowledged. But remember, reconciliation doesn't mean returning to the previous relationship or erasing consequences. It means establishing a new relationship based on truth and accountability. What if it's just another manipulation? I asked, voicing my deepest fear. That's why professional facilitation is essential, she replied. A skilled therapist will recognize manipulation tactics, and you're not the same person you were before. You're more aware, more protected. After careful consideration, I agreed to an initial meeting with Tyler's counselor alone before committing to joint sessions. Connor Wright turned out to be a serious, thoughtful man in his 50s with 20 years' experience working with financial offenders. Tyler has made unusual progress, he told me in his office at Restoration House. Most clients initially focus on justifying their actions or minimizing harm. Tyler entered treatment already accepting responsibility. That could be strategic, I pointed out. He's always been perceptive about what people want to hear. Connor nodded. We consider that possibility with all clients. That's why we focus on consistent behavior over time, not just declarations of remorse. He explained that Restoration House employed a rigorous program combining cognitive behavioral therapy, financial ethics training, restitution planning, and community service. Tyler has been participating in our senior outreach program, educating older adults about financial fraud protection, Connor continued. Initially, we assigned him administrative work behind the scenes, but he asked to speak directly to groups, sharing his story as a cautionary tale. This surprised me. Tyler had always been intensely private, avoiding public speaking whenever possible. It's uncomfortable for him, Connor confirmed. But he says if his mistakes can prevent others from being victimized, the discomfort is worthwhile. Still cautious, I agreed to a supervised meeting the following week. I prepared thoroughly with Dr. Levine, identifying boundaries and rehearsing responses to potential manipulation tactics. The meeting room at Restoration House was deliberately neutral, comfortable but institutional. Tyler entered with Connor, looking both better and worse than at his sentencing. He'd gained healthy weight, but exhaustion lined his face in ways that made him appear older than his 23 years. "Thank you for coming," he said simply, taking the seat across from me. "I'm here to listen," I replied, maintaining the emotional boundaries I'd established with Dr. Levine. Tyler nodded, seeming to understand. "I've been dreading and hoping for this opportunity for months," he began. "Dreading it because I have to face the pain I caused you. Hoping for it because it means you might someday allow me some role in your life again, even if it's nothing like before." He spoke without the charming confidence that had once been his hallmark. Instead, his words came carefully, deliberately, as if each had been examined for honesty before being offered. "The program here has helped me understand that my behavior wasn't just about money," he continued. "It was about entitlement, about believing the rules didn't apply to me because of my relationship to you. It was about using external things. Expensive clothes, Amber's approval, the appearance of success, to fill internal emptiness." I listened silently, searching for signs of the practiced performance I'd seen in court. "I've also had to confront something harder," he added. "My actions weren't momentary weakness or bad influence. They revealed character flaws I'd been nurturing for years, dishonesty in small things that grew into bigger betrayals, resentment I never expressed directly, pride that prevented me from admitting failure." Connor interjected gently. "Tyler, tell your mother about the gambling." Tyler's face flushed with shame. "I didn't tell anyone this before, not even during the trial. I started online sports betting during junior year of college. Nothing big at first, just $20 here and there. By senior year, I was thousands in debt to online bookmakers. This revelation stunned me. Tyler had never shown interest in gambling. Amber knew," he continued. "She didn't cause it, but she recognized it as leverage. She suggested borrowing from you to cover my losses, promising we'd pay it back before you noticed. That first theft, just $200, broke a barrier. After that, each time got easier." "Why didn't you mention this during the legal proceedings?" I asked, finding my voice. "It might have affected your sentence." "Because it would have felt like another excuse," he replied. "And because I was still ashamed. I'm not sharing it now to justify anything, only to help you understand the complete picture." Connor explained that Tyler had been diagnosed with gambling addiction and was participating in recovery programs alongside his other treatment. "Addiction doesn't excuse behavior," Connor emphasized, "but addressing it is essential to preventing recurrence." Over the next 2 hours, Tyler answered my questions with painful honesty. About Amber's influence, about his resentments, about the elaborate justifications he'd created to rationalize stealing from me. "I told myself you owed me," he admitted, "for raising me frugally, for the vacations we never took, for the designer clothes I didn't have in high school. I convinced myself I was just taking what should have been mine anyway." Each admission was like reopening a wound, yet somehow less painful than the festering uncertainty I'd lived with. At the session's end, Connor asked if I would consider returning for additional therapeutic meetings. Despite my lingering caution, I agreed. Over the following months, we established a careful routine, bi-weekly sessions with Connor, gradually increasing in length and depth. Tyler completed extensive financial amends work, creating a detailed restitution plan that would begin immediately upon his release. "I've accepted that rebuilding trust may take years," he told me during our fourth session, "or it may never happen completely. I'm committed to the work either way." 6 months into the process, I received an unexpected letter from Amber. Unlike her previous court-mandated apology, this one acknowledged specific harms without qualification. "I exploited vulnerabilities in your family for financial gain," she wrote. "I manipulated Tyler's weaknesses, but I also recognized and nurtured his worst instincts. There is no excuse for my behavior." She enclosed a check for $3,000, not the full amount she owed, but significantly more than the minimal payments required by her probation. "This is the beginning of my restitution," her letter continued. "I've been working 3 jobs to honor this commitment. I make no assumptions about forgiveness, but I am committed to making material amends." I shared the letter with Connor and Tyler during our next session. "She's in a different treatment program now," Tyler explained, "more intensive than her probation required. She sought it out voluntarily after her previous one wasn't addressing the underlying issues." "Are you still in contact?" I asked, uncertain how I felt about the possibility. "No," Tyler replied firmly. "Our relationship was toxic from the beginning. We enabled each other's worst behaviors. I wish her well in recovery, but we need to heal separately." His clear-eyed assessment of the relationship impressed me more than any apology could have. As Tyler's program neared completion, our therapeutic discussions shifted toward practical matters. His housing plan after release, employment prospects with a felony record, continued treatment requirements. He would face significant challenges rebuilding his life. "I know I'll be starting over completely," he acknowledged. "No shortcuts this time." Connor suggested a final therapeutic exercise before Tyler's release. The return of personal items I had collected from the guest room after their hasty departure. Most had been inventoried as evidence, but with the case closed, they had been released back to me. Going through Tyler's belongings had been painful. College photos, birthday cards I'd given him, childhood mementos mixed with expensive purchases from the period of theft. I brought a selection to our final session at Restoration House. His high school yearbook, family photos, a few childhood treasures. Deliberately excluded were the expensive clothes and electronics purchased with stolen funds. Those had been sold to contribute toward restitution. Tyler examined each item carefully, tears welling as he held the small ceramic handprint he'd made in kindergarten. "I thought you would have thrown everything away," he said quietly. "I considered it," I admitted. "But these belong to the son I raised, not to the person who betrayed me. I wasn't ready to lose both." At the end of the session, Connor reviewed Tyler's continuing care plan, ongoing therapy, Gamblers Anonymous meetings, regular check-ins with his probation officer, and the structured restitution plan we had developed together. "Recovery is an ongoing process," Connor reminded us both. "This isn't an ending, just a new phase of the journey." As I prepared to leave, Tyler asked if he could hug me, the first physical contact he had requested since before his arrest. I hesitated, then nodded. The embrace was brief and awkward, nothing like the easy affection we'd once shared. But it was something, a small, fragile beginning. "I won't waste this chance," Tyler whispered. "I promise." Promises from Tyler carried little weight now, but his consistent actions over the past year spoke louder than any words could. Whether they represented genuine change or elaborate performance remained to be seen. As I drove home, I realized something important. I no longer needed Tyler to be completely reformed to move forward with my own life. My healing wasn't contingent on his redemption. Whatever path he chose after release, I had reclaimed my own strength and identity. That, perhaps, was the most significant redemption of all. 1 year after that fateful night, when I overheard Tyler and Amber plotting to steal from me, my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined. The journey hadn't been linear. Healing rarely is. But looking back, I could trace the painful path that led to unexpected growth. The most visible change was professional. My experience had given me unique insight into family financial exploitation, an increasingly common but rarely discussed form of abuse. With encouragement from my therapist, I developed a workshop for my financial advising clients on protecting assets from family fraud. "The statistics are shocking," I told participants. Over 65% of elder financial abuse is perpetrated by family members or trusted caregivers. Yet most victims never report the crime due to shame or fear of family consequences. The workshop's success led to speaking invitations from community centers, retirement homes, and eventually, a TEDx talk titled, "When Trust Becomes a Weapon: Surviving Family Financial Abuse." Each presentation was difficult, requiring me to publicly discuss the most painful chapter of my life, but the responses made it worthwhile. "You helped me recognize what's happening with my daughter," one woman told me, tears in her eyes. "I've been making excuses for years. Today, I'm calling my bank to protect what's left." I implemented rigorous financial safeguards in my own life. Multiple authentication methods protected all accounts. Regular credit monitoring alerts notified me of any unusual activity. A separate financial advocate, not a family member, had oversight of my accounts as an additional safety measure. These precautions weren't just practical, they were psychological. They helped restore the sense of security I'd lost when my home became a site of exploitation. Tyler had been released from Restoration House 4 months earlier, moving into a structured transitional living facility rather than returning to my home. He found work at a construction company owned by a Restoration House board member who specifically hired people rebuilding after incarceration. The physical labor was completely unlike the marketing career he'd envisioned, but he embraced it with surprising commitment. "It's honest work," he told me during one of our monthly dinners. Public meetings that had replaced the intensive therapy sessions after his release. "I come home tired, but knowing exactly what I accomplished that day." He lived simply in a shared apartment, maintaining sobriety, attending GA meetings 3 times weekly, and adhering meticulously to his restitution plan. Each month, he contributed 30% of his income toward the remaining debt, often adding extra when he worked overtime. Our relationship had found a new equilibrium. Not the easy closeness we once shared, but not the painful estrangement of the legal proceedings either. We operated with what I called trust with verification. Cautious faith, supported by transparency and accountability. Tyler voluntarily provided access to his financial accounts, not because I demanded it, but because he understood the need to rebuild credibility through verifiable actions, not just promises. "Boundaries aren't punishment," Dr. Levine had explained during a session. "They're protection that benefits both parties. They give you security and give Tyler the opportunity to demonstrate consistent trustworthiness over time." Amber's journey took a different turn. Despite her apparent commitment to recovery and restitution, she was arrested again 6 months after completing probation, this time for identity theft, targeting an elderly man she'd met while working at a pharmacy. She now faced significant prison time as a repeat offender. The news saddened, but didn't surprise me. True change requires sustained effort beyond external supervision, and Amber's pattern of exploiting vulnerability seemed deeply ingrained. When I shared the news with Tyler during one of our dinners, his response revealed his own growth. "I'm sorry to hear that," he said quietly, but not entirely surprised. "The work we've been doing in recovery, it's hard. Some people aren't ready to confront the parts of themselves that need to change most." "And you?" I asked. "Are you confronting those parts?" "Every day," he replied without hesitation. "It's exhausting and often humiliating. But the alternative is becoming someone I don't want to be." The integrity in his words felt genuine, though I maintained the healthy skepticism Dr. Levine had helped me develop. Trust, once shattered, rebuilds in microscopic increments, not grand gestures. My personal life had expanded in unexpected ways. Through the support group for financial abuse survivors, I met Richard, a retired accountant whose son had emptied his retirement accounts during a custody battle. Our shared experience created an immediate understanding that slowly blossomed into companionship, then romance. I never expected to find love through trauma, I confided to Janet during one of our coffee dates. "The best relationships often come when we're not looking," she replied. "When you're focused on healing yourself instead of filling a void." Richard understood my financial vigilance without taking offense. He respected my boundaries without resentment. When I hesitated to combine households after a year of dating, he suggested we maintain separate residences while spending time together, an arrangement that honored my need for security without sacrificing connection. Tyler's reaction to Richard surprised me. Rather than jealousy or resentment, He expressed genuine happiness that I had found companionship. "You deserve someone who treats you well," he said simply. "After everything I put you through, seeing you happy matters more than any discomfort I might feel about the situation." The most profound change, however, was internal. The woman who had defined herself primarily as Tyler's mom had discovered multiple dimensions of identity: survivor, advocate, mentor, partner, friend. The betrayal that once seemed like an ending had become, improbably, a beginning. On the anniversary of the confrontation, Tyler asked to meet at the park where I'd taken him as a child. The significance of the location wasn't lost on me. It represented a time of uncomplicated love, before betrayal had changed everything. He arrived carrying a small gift bag, which he handed to me nervously. "It's not much," he said. "Just something I wanted you to have." Inside was a handmade wooden box, meticulously crafted and polished. "I made it in the woodworking program," he explained. "The instructor helped me." I opened the hinged lid to find a folded paper inside. It was a certificate of completion for a financial ethics course he had taken voluntarily after finishing his required program. "I wanted you to know I'm still doing the work," he said. "Not because it's mandated, but because it's right." Beneath the certificate lay an envelope. Inside was a check for $3,200, far exceeding his scheduled monthly restitution payment. "The construction company gave us all bonuses for completing a project early," he explained. "I wanted every cent to go toward making amends." I studied his face, remembering the boy who had once suggested selling my mother's necklace to cover his gambling debts. The contrast was stark. "I could have used this for an apartment deposit," he continued, "to move out of transitional housing. But that would have been putting my comfort ahead of my responsibility. I'm not that person anymore." I accepted the check with mixed emotions, grateful for the tangible commitment to restitution, but sad that our relationship had been reduced to financial transactions and cautious rebuilding. "There's something else," Tyler said hesitantly. "I've been offered a promotion at work. Supervisor position, significant pay increase." "That's wonderful," I replied sincerely. "They offered to help with housing too," he continued. "An advance to secure an apartment closer to the worksite." I tensed slightly, wondering if this was leading to a request for financial assistance despite his earlier declaration. "I turned down the housing advance," he said, surprising me. "I don't want to create new debt while I'm still repaying what I owe you. I'll stay in transitional housing until I've saved enough for a deposit on my own." The decision reflected a fundamental shift in priorities. Delayed gratification over immediate comfort, responsibility over convenience. It was exactly the value system I had tried to instill throughout his childhood, finally taking root. "I'm proud of your choice," I told him, the words carrying weight I hadn't anticipated. His eyes filled with tears. "That means more than you know." As we walked back to our separate cars, Tyler stopped suddenly. "I want you to know something," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "I understand now that our relationship may never return to what it was before. Too much has happened, but I'm grateful for whatever place you allow me in your life, even if it's always at this distance." The acknowledgement that actions have permanent consequences, that some damage cannot be undone, reflected a maturity I'd feared he might never develop. "Thank you for not giving up on me completely," he added quietly. "I wouldn't have blamed you if you had. I couldn't promise a full restoration of trust. I couldn't guarantee that the cautious relationship we'd rebuilt would ever approach the closeness we once shared. But in that moment, I could offer honesty. I'm proud of the work you're doing," I said, "and I'm cautiously hopeful about the man you're becoming." It wasn't forgiveness, exactly. It was something more nuanced: recognition of growth without erasing history, appreciation of effort without guaranteeing outcomes. That night, I added a final entry to the journal I'd kept throughout this journey. 1 year ago, I discovered that the person I trusted most in the world was systematically betraying me. The pain was unlike anything I'd experienced, even losing Mark. At least, death is honest. I've learned that betrayal doesn't define you unless you allow it to. That accountability isn't cruelty. It's often the most loving action possible. That forgiveness isn't a moment but a process, one that happens in tiny increments rather than grand gestures. Most importantly, I've learned that my worth isn't determined by my success or failure as a parent. Tyler's choices, good and bad, are his own. I provided foundation and guidance. But the path he walks is ultimately his responsibility. I don't know what our future holds. I can't predict whether Tyler's changes will endure beyond supervision and structure, but I know with certainty that I will survive either outcome. The betrayal that once seemed to be the end of my story has become just a chapter in a longer, richer narrative than I ever imagined possible. I closed the journal and placed it on my nightstand, a record of the hardest year of my life, and perhaps, unexpectedly, one of the most transformative. Family betrayal leaves scars that never completely fade. I'm sharing my story because I know so many of you have similar wounds, some still fresh, some long healed but always remembered. If this resonated with your own experience, I'd be grateful if you'd share your thoughts in the comments below. How did you balance accountability with compassion? What helped you heal? If you found value in this journey, please consider subscribing to join our community of survivors and supporters. Your likes help these stories reach others who might be suffering in silence, thinking they're alone. And sharing this video could be the lifeline someone desperately needs. Thank you for walking this path with me today. Remember, healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about building a future where those painful chapters inform but don't control your story. Take care of yourselves and each other.